Welcome to the Draft Board Hockey Show, episode 8. This is a special episode. We are going to be doing a mock draft with a couple of other YouTubers from Puck Bunker. We got Rocco and Darren. Welcome to the show, boys.
How you doing?
Thanks for having us.
Yes. Go check out their YouTube site. It's Puck Bunkers, and it is unreal. They get into some good discussions there. I always have a blast watching you guys. And of course, my co-host, the Linc Meister from New Wave Hockey. How's it going, Linc?
It's going great. It's going great. I just a fair warning, real quick. I was in Prague over the weekend, and for some reason, I didn't end up catching a Praha game. I would have loved to, yeah. I mean, the side effects of Prague. It was a beautiful city. I think I've seen only half of it, so go check it out. It's a great city. And apparently, I almost ran into Jaromir Jagr, according to some lady at a restaurant. She was like, "Oh my god!" Some lady was just like, "I was like, oh, you like hockey?" Because I was like wearing a Trevor Zegras shirt. Let's not get into it. I was wearing a Trevor Zegras shirt, and she's like, "Oh, the Jagr, he was here." I was like, "What? Where?" She just, that was essentially all I got. So.
You missed out, J-Jag, man. That's unreal. Actually, we got a couple of people that are hurting on the show. We got Linc, who's hurting from Prague, and we got Darren, who's hurting from a hockey tournament. A little different pain, as Rocco said.
Don't feel good today. Body's a little sore, but I'm ready to do this little mock draft. This will be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, boys. So the way we did it is, or set it up is, we all have individual picks. We're going to go through 20, and so that means that we're going to have 5 picks each. And it's going to be a lot of fun, boys. I'm interested to see where you guys have certain teams picking where. So, Linc, if you want to, we're going to put up how we came across the picks. And obviously, we went to Tankathon. So, as of today, this is the way that the draft is going to play out. So, we got San Jose, Chicago, Nashville, and Buffalo for the first 4 picks. We are going to discuss those picks. And luckily, I got the first overall pick. So San Jose, young core got, we have William Smith, we got Macklin Celebrini, we got Willie Eklund, we got Sam Dickinson, we got a bunch of young guys, and I'm going to go with my favorite player in this draft so far, and that's Matthew Schaefer. Of course, he's going to go first overall to San Jose, and what can I say? If you watch the show, you know that I'm a big fan of Matthew Schaefer. I have been for a long time, since Olinka, basically. And, we were kind of, last year, he didn't have the offensive output that we were hoping for, but this year he's come through, even though he's had a couple of, he's missed a few games. Broken collarbone was the recent one from the World Juniors there. But I still think that the skating, the offense, just the way he maneuvers across the ice is unreal. And that's my first pick. I don't know. What do you guys think? San Jose, is that a good pick for the Sharks at number 1? I know you guys all like Matthew Schaefer too, except Linc. He's the outside guy here.
Well, I'll jump in real quick. I mean, again, the tire pumping continues. No, but Matthew Schaefer is a fantastic young player. And I think I've said this the last time that pretty much every single time that we've had follower questions about who San Jose would take if they were having first overall, it's going to be Schaefer. They need exactly what he brings to the team. Despite me thinking that he isn't the best overall player in the draft class, he would be an excellent addition to San Jose's core. It's like the perfect fit, in my opinion.
I mean, I think that for me, that's a slam dunk pick, and I don't really care what team ends up first overall. I think it's going to be extremely hard for anyone to pass on that guy, and certainly not San Jose. Like Linc said, that's a great fit for what they need. I think they've got maybe the best young forward in the league in Macklin Celebrini, under 23, and Matthew Schaefer would be a really nice running mate for him to build the foundations of a future contender.
Their forward group's really good. You missed one guy, Chernishev. He has a billion points in about 8 games. So, I mean, that's another great pick outside the first round. They literally traded for a franchise goalie. I mean, literally all they have to do is shore up their defense. I think there's a team you're looking for Schaefer to go to. It's this one. I think this is the best fit for him.
Yeah, and like you said, we could have mentioned a couple of other players, Musty and Askarov, like you mentioned. So yeah, that team is they're doing it. They're doing it right in San Jose for sure. All right, so at number 2 we got Rocco, and he gets to pick for the Chicago Blackhawks. And Rocco, number 2, who's going to Chicago?
So for Chicago, the last few years, they've drafted, in my opinion, a lot of some pretty high-end skill, but I think they've lacked in the size department, and I think they've lacked a little bit in terms of picking some more two-way guys, maybe with the exception of Boisvert and Van Acker last year. I think they've got a pretty solid young defense core. They've got Lev Shunov as ideally their number 1 right D in the future. They've got some decent depth on the left side as well. And I think they could use a center here with a little bit of size and a little bit of two-way play that still brings a really dynamic element. And most importantly, someone smart enough that's going to be able to play with Bedard, if not on a line one day, then at least on the power play. And that's going to be Michael Misa, who is separating himself, in my humble opinion, as the clear number 2 in this draft. I've seen more from him than any other forward in this draft class. And most importantly, I've seen it consistently. There hasn't been a viewing of Misa that I haven't come away impressed. And I've watched some games where the point totals weren't crazy. And I've seen all his crazy games, of course, but even in his quiet games, he's affecting the play in a positive way and turning pucks over and pushing the play up ice. And I'm a really, really big fan of his. And I think that's a no-brainer for Chicago at number 2.
Boys, anyone want to say anything about that or what?
Go ahead.
I mean, he said it all. He said it all. I mean, look, I'm if Mark is the Matthew Schaefer tire pumper on this podcast, I'm the Michael Misa tire pumper. I've been waving this flag for a little bit now. And again, so excited. I'm kind of mad that you took my pick. I was kind of hoping that you would slip up and take Hagens at 2, but Misa, I mean, he's gonna be a tremendous fit no matter where he goes. I mean, you just told us everything that's great about him. All I want to say is just the stats over the last 18 games. He's had an 18-game point streak since December 29th during the World Juniors, and he's put up 45 points, 20 of which being goals in that 18-game span. And everyone's talking about Chernyshев, everyone's talking about other OHL players, but he's at 100 points right now, 106 points, 50 goals. Yeah. I don't think any other player in the CHL has even been close to 100. It's crazy what he's been doing.
Crystal just hit 100, I think, right? Andrew Crystal.
Oh,
yeah, darn. Yeah. He just hit it. That's okay. I mean, you know what though? I've been watching Michael Misa for 3 years because my good buddy's kid plays on that team. So, and I partied with the boys after the Mem Cup. Went on the ice, went in the dressing room, partied with the boys. It was a good time. And yeah, you know what? Misa's a stud. I mean, at the end of the day, and he's done everything that you want from a prospect. He's progressed. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. I mean, can't go back to the O. It's just wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, I think all 4 of us would have had Michael Misa at number 2 to Chicago for sure.
So the one thing I liked about him, Rocco and I saw him a couple times last year. You know, again, he's a 16-year-old, second year in the OHL, so he's a little different than other guys. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't, popping off, the rink to you. He was a good player. He had good details, but he wasn't, you didn't see what you saw this year. The improvement is kind of staggering, how much better he looks compared to last year. And he wasn't bad last year. So, I mean, people were comparing kind of to Shane Wright before the season.
Yeah.
Which is definitely not the case.
No.
So, I mean, we've liked Misa for a while. I think I've said this before. I think there's him and kind of a divide between the other forwards. I don't think it's relatively close. I think he could play in the NHL next year. I mean, he's detailed enough. He's also played in defensive roles before. That was one thing I didn't like. Kind of you heard when the World Junior selection came out and he didn't get picked. People kind of was a one-dimensional player. That's not really true.
He's not at all one-dimensional.
No, he can play the defensive. Plays the neutral. If he's not, if they want to play offense, he play offense. If he wants to play defense, he play defense. So, this is a high-end talent.
Totally agree. So we're all in agreement with Michael Misa at number 2 to Chicago. So now we got Nashville, and Linc ended up getting that pick. So Linc, what are you doing with the Nashville Predators at number 3?
So, I mean, I, like pretty much every single person at the beginning of this year, would probably be pretty astonished that Nashville's picking 3. That's kind of beyond me, seeing their offseason that they had. I mean, they were so hyped and everything, and everyone's talking about, oh, they're going to be great with Stamkos and Marchessault and whatnot. But they've fallen to this level, and they've been rebuilding on the fly. They've been trying to make it work, but now this is like kind of their opportunity to get a piece of this new core to kind of drive them into the 2020s. And I think when we're talking about pure talent level, the 2 guys we've just talked about are pretty much like unmatched. They've been playing at a really high rate compared to the rest of the draft class. However, we also need to talk about who a player is going to be 5 years down the line, 8 years down the line. And I think one of the best ceilings in this draft is my pick for number 3, center James Higgins from Boston College. What he does with the puck is mesmerizing. I really think he was the most underrated player at the World Juniors because people were just writing off a lot of the things, but he was, in my opinion, the driver of that line of Leonard and Perreault, more so than Will Smith was even last year. He's very intelligent offensively, though he does have a tendency to disappear sometimes in BC games. He's been getting better at two-way play. He's been getting better at the defensive reliability, and he's showing off what he should be showing off more often. His shot is really still solid, but he was getting unlucky at the beginning of the year. He's kind of tapering off now, but his ceiling is through the roof. We talk often about, again, who a player is going to be 3 years down the line. I think 3, 4, 5, 8 years down the line, if we get to that 8-year mark, I would be stunned if James Higgins is not top 2, if not top 1 in this draft.
What do you think, boys?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree. His ceiling offensively is probably about as high as anyone's in this class, and if it's not number 1, it's debatably right there. Again, I like Misa better, but if you're looking at offensive upside, it is tough to pass on James Higgins. Now, what Linc mentioned, the details of his game do need to improve, and they have gotten a little bit better throughout the year. And when you're looking at a guy that could be a 90-plus point player, you are willing to overlook some deficiencies that they might have as a teenage kid, right? You're not the same person at 24, 25 that you are at 17. At least I hope you're not. And provided those things come, I don't disagree. We're looking at the guy who's probably going to maybe lead this draft class in points scored, or if not, at least be in the top 3. And it would be very, very difficult to pass on that pure raw level of skill. And this is a debate that me and boys have had probably 145 times this season already.
Watched a lot.
You're balancing the pure unmatched skill level, where it's like, okay, he does things that other guys can't, despite the fact that he maybe has some more flaws. You might be willing to live with those if you think you can work with him. And more importantly, if he's willing to be that type of player at the NHL level. He's always been the best player on every team he's ever played on. Why would he play defense? He's never needed to. So, but guys learn, and guys are willing to learn. And as long as he can work on those deficiencies, as he has been, and continue to do so, yeah, this is a great pick for Nashville at number 3.
So I'll say this. I think this is the right guy for Nashville to pick. They don't have this type of dynamic forward. So I think that fits exactly what they need. I mean, I've had some qualms about his, kind of play throughout the years. Just a few things that kind of concern me. His size concerns me. Just when you see even in the World Juniors, when the game gets slowed down, he's in the offensive zone, not off the rush. He's not as effective a player as when he's on the rush, he's dynamic. But no one else has that skill set in this draft. So, I mean, he can improve at that for sure. I mean, I have some questions about the defensive side of the game, but again, he's 18 years old. So, I mean, that is what it is. I like the pick for Nashville, though. They need a dynamic guy. And I think that's the right guy for them.
Yeah, I think I agree too. I think that's a good pick for Nashville at number 3. So moving on, we got Buffalo
If I had $3 million right now, I'd almost have 6 in 5 seconds.
So I'm just going to qualify something here for Buffalo. This is a potential trade slot for them because they need defensive depth badly. They have 2 top end guys. I don't know if they're going to sign Byram long term. Like, they need some defensive depth. And if they were picking here, this is not what they would be picking. So for instance, later in this draft, maybe a trade with Montreal, who, has a ton of picks and wants to move up. Like, this is the type of, again, there's a player here that would interest, a couple players here that would interest Montreal a lot. Whereas Buffalo might want to use 2 picks on defensemen. So it's very possible here. However, if Buffalo's going the forward route, I mean, to me, there's 2 options here. Okay. Buffalo's draft history here lately, they've drafted a fair amount of smaller-ish forwards. They're also talking about trading Dylan Cousins, so they kind of need a center. So to me, the pick here is Caleb Denway.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I think if you go with a 1-2 combo with him and Hellenius, like, this is a really good, 1-2 punch up the middle.
How about Tage Thompson? Can he play center?
Tage Thompson's been playing the wing with them, though.
I guess, yeah.
So it's like they also need someone to get Tage Thompson the puck. They don't have that elite playmaker to play with him. So I think this is kind of the pick that fits there. Even with the Hellenius pick last year, these are 2 high-end 2-way forwards, play winning hockey that they haven't really had. I mean, they haven't had since Eichel anyway. A guy that can kind of, be a playmaker out there. They need a guy like that. But I am going to qualify that pick. I'm not sure if this is the best route for Buffalo to go. I think they might be looking to trade down. I think that is a distinct possibility here. I just don't see a defenseman that they would want to take it for here. So,
yeah, I think a trade at this position, like you said, everything that you said, I totally agree with that. And I think that Montreal, who has a couple of first rounders, I think they might be willing to move up a few spots and take. I think that it wouldn't be surprising if that happens come draft day. I agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with all the qualifyings. But the one thing I will say is, like, again, good on you, because I think Desnoyers by that time might be looked at as like kind of like an edgy, like Pat Verbeek type pick, like the big reach on Beckett Seneca last year. I think that might be the popular pick for some of his analytics guys. And again, even if a trade does not like materialize, they will probably pick the best player available. And I mean, I could totally see Kevin Adams looking at Desnoyers and his skill set and being like, that's our guy. Could totally see it.
The other thing too, with, you spoke about the kind of what's he look like in 5 years. Like, this is a guy who's 175 pounds. I've said that a lot of times. He's 6'2". Like, he's going to play at 210. Like, this is going to be, and he already is kind of a physical threat playing in the queue. Now, again, some people have qualms at the queue right now. I mean, I'm a little less hesitant on that than others, but I mean, you can kind of see that this guy is going to be a more physical guy. And even comparing him to Martone, I actually like Denway's physical game more than Martone. He's much more active in that department. So I think he's might actually be more of a power forward than people kind of think. So
yeah, I think this is be a great pick there. He's a do-it-all type of player. I think he's got a very high floor to go with a very high ceiling as well. Yeah, that'd be a great pick at number 4.
I agree. All right, let's do number 5. So I got number 5, and that is Seattle. And you know what? I think Seattle, they got Matty Beniers, they got Shane Wright, they drafted Berkeley Catton. So their centermen are pretty much locked up, in my opinion. And there's a player there by the name of Carson Rakoff that plays. And his chemistry with the guy that I think should go to Seattle, and that's Porter Martone. I mean, you got a big winger. The knock on Martone is that inconsistent play. The skating is not there, but he's putting up points. I mean, he's kind of slowed down a little bit lately. But at the end of the day, I think that, the skating you can work on. He's a big physical presence. Him and Rakoff have some chemistry together. The centermans are lined up in Seattle. They could probably use a D, but again, like Darren said, I wouldn't be, the D that are available or that are available now at this point in the draft. I still don't see anyone stepping up in that number 5 position. So I'm going to go with Porter Martone to Seattle at number 5.
Yeah, that's a pretty good fit for them, I think, based on what they have in the system. And it's a very, very, very high upside player. If this guy now he's got some warts in terms of his consistent compete level, I think. But if that comes, we all saw what the Kachucks did last night. So
yeah.
And if that's the kind of player, Corey Perry is another one that comes to mind, right? Big, skilled, mean MF out there. And that's what people see with Martone. And the only issue is that they see it in flashes so far. And again, we're talking about teenagers with a lot of runway ahead of them. And if this guy hits, we're looking at this. There might be a couple teams who are upset they passed on him if the full package turns out.
Those two guys you mentioned also, Brady and Perry, struggled to skate in their draft year. So, I mean, that does fit that model. I mean, there's a high upside offensive player here. But as I've said, you've already said it, I've had trouble with his skating kind of all year. That it does concern me. But at 5th overall, I think this is the highest upside pick for them. I think this fits a need for them. It's even if he's, again, I think he'll play. It's just, if he hits, like, this is a 1,000-point player, right? Like, that's kind of like, that's kind of what the thought process is here. So, yeah.
Just similar to Buffalo, I feel like they should have selected a D-man last year. They were in the area of getting perhaps maybe Zane Parekh, but no. So they're doing fine. They could select a really good player with Porter Martone here. Would have liked him on the Flyers. That would have been a lot better, because I think him and Michkov would complement each other really well. But going to the Kraken would be nice.
All right, so then moving on, we got number 6, and Rocco, you got the Flyers.
Yeah, but I'm feeling nice today, and I see Linc there with the Flyers jersey in the background, and he picks at 7 with Pittsburgh, and I got Pittsburgh's pick at 14 as well. So, Linc, how would you like to take the Flyers pick? And I'll take 7, and I'll do both Pittsburgh picks.
Oh, baby, we got a trade. Our first trade of the mock draft. I love it.
Sounds good. I mean, I probably would have buried whoever was going to Pittsburgh anyway, so it doesn't matter. This is a pick of a lot of speculation. Obviously, last year there was a lot of speculation. There was a lot of talk, especially when a certain Zeev Buium was available at 12 last year. But we got Jetluchenko, and he's been playing really well. And the kind of whole goal of this rebuild, or this kind of downturn by the Flyers, is to supplant 39. And you got to think of what players right now would be able to complement him at 6. And in terms of upside, in terms of grit, in terms of, this guy looks like a Philly guy. I really can't go with anybody else than the super Swede Victor Eklund from Your Gardens in the Allsvenskan. Yeah, some people thought I was going to talk about another super Swede, but I like Eklund a little bit better. I think he's got a tremendous offensive upside compared with otherworldly compete, really solid skating, and a really high IQ game. I really think he goes unnoticed and undervalued for his offensive game, because he's deployed in a role for Your Gardens this year. He is just a plug and play guy playing two-way hockey, and I really respect that you can do both. I see a little bit of Travis Konechny in the kid. I really love him, and I think he would be a perfect fit in Philadelphia, barring Martone and Desi going by this point.
I mean, I like that pick for the Flyers. He is a very prototypical Flyer player. I think that's extreme try hard. I mean, he wins a ton of battles, even though, again, as I've said before, I've had questions kind of his size a lot of the time. He's a guy, just because he's small, but he does play a way that I am quite confident that he will be a good NHL player. He's really hard to play against. And even in terms of in Sweden, he's been playing with Frondell a bit, if that's who you're referring to, I'm assuming. And I think Eklund's maybe been driving a bit more of the play than Frondell has. So I think that kind of fits as well. But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty prototypical Flyers pick here. I think that, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's an exact Flyer pick for sure.
That's fantastic. I think he'd be a great fit there. You guys covered it all. I mean, he's got, of the guys who are in the top 10 or so, he's got maybe the best motor of that whole group. And I like a guy with a high compete level. So it's really hard not to be a big fan of Victor Eklund.
All right. We got so Rocco, you get Pittsburgh at number 7. What are you feeling for the Pens at number 7?
Well, the nice thing about drafting for Pittsburgh is that they need literally everything. They've been very short on picks the last few years as they've tried to maintain their competitive window with Sid and Malkin and Letang as they move into their late 30s. So they don't really have a ton in their prospect pool. So that allows them to go best player available here. And this is actually, I think, would be an absolutely perfect fit for Pittsburgh, because I think this guy can probably play in one more season and maybe actually play with Sid and Gino and probably be a hell of a number 3, really, really young, before he eventually takes over and develops into their next top end center. And that is Anton Frondel. And I think this is one of the most exquisite two-way players in this draft class. His details are phenomenal. I think the hockey sense might ooze out of his ears. There's so much of it sometimes. He sees the ice extremely, extremely well. And I've been told by my good friend Darren Boyce that he's maybe not the best driver of play at times, but I disagree with that. I've seen him start so many plays in his own end with a smart defensive play and still find his way onto the score sheet there, following up the play in the offensive end. I think he was phenomenal at the Five Nations that they just did. And his early season, he didn't put up a lot of points early this year, after coming into the season with a boatload of hype behind him. And I think we're seeing now, as the second half of the season goes on, what he's really all about. And I'm very much on board the Anton Frondel hype train right now. And I think he'd be a great fit in Pittsburgh.
I mean, he's a very high end, two-way, I guess. I think he can play center in the NHL. So I think it'd be a, good two-way center here. Again, I think he's more maybe of the secondary driver of offense on the line, but as you said, he can drive possession with his defensive play. So it does, it works. I think he can play quickly. I think if he plays quickly and plays with, Hall of Famers on his team, that can only help him.
Not to mention, he has one of the best shots in the draft, which is something I neglected to touch on. But offensively, if someone can get him the puck in a one-timer position, it's in the back of the net more often than not.
Yeah, we saw that at the Five Nations recently. I watched a lot of that, and he was solid at the Five Nations against his own. And you got to remember, he's a 2007 pick. Like a lot of the picks before him were 2006ers. So I always look into that. And at the U19 Challenge, he kind of stood out again too. So and he's starting to pick it up in Djurgården. So I mean, you know what, I like him a lot, actually. I think that there's another level. His skating could probably improve a little bit more too, but he's still young, right? And I think that there's some offensive potential there, I think, with Frondel. And I like that pick. I'm a big fan of Frondel. I've been a fan of his for a while. One thing started off slow, but I think lately he's been tearing it up.
One thing to note is he kind of came into the year a bit injured. So that's, there's been kind of reports coming out that he's feeling healthy now. It's kind of reflective in his play. So that also, could be a thing as well, that he's finally, his body's feeling good. So, I think this is a good pick for Pittsburgh here. Do you think it's a Kyle Dubas selection though, Rocco?
I can only pick what I think is the best option. He's probably not soft enough for Dubas, but
Oh boy. It's a hurt Leafs fan right there. In terms of the Frondel pick, I'm a bit lower on him than a lot of other people. Glad that you picked him with Pittsburgh. No, I'm kidding. But he's again, he has the opportunity to blow up. He can take over games at times, but My concern is the same thing with Darren. Again, I think he can't create enough space to become a line driver, neither with his hands nor with his skating. So we'll see what happens with him, but I think he's a little bit limited in terms of consistency for now.
All right. Let's see here. So at number 8, we got St. Louis to Darren, but we did a flip. We did a flip-flop right here. So I'm going to be picking at number 7 for the Blues. Oh, so this is a tough series. I don't think they're going to go D. They got Broberg, Jiricek, who's the other one? Theo Lindstein. So this is a tough call. I think this might be personal preference. I'm torn between 2 centermen here. Do I go with McQueen, who hasn't really, we haven't seen a lot of his game, or do we go with, I think who has potential to be a steal of the draft, and that's Jake O'Brien. Oh, what do I do here? You know what? In my rankings, I have McQueen higher, so I'm gonna go with Roger McQueen here. Big, powerful centerman. Is that guy gonna come back at all this year? Is there any rumblings as to when McQueen's gonna come back? Like his first 8 games, absolute terror, looking really good, and then down and out with a back injury. I guess
people have been saying February, I guess. So now,
so like hopefully sometime soon. I'd like to see him run into the playoffs and show us what he's got. But like I said, this was a toss up between him and Jake O'Brien, and I'm going to go with Roger McQueen just because he's a big, good skating, nice hands, great shot kind of player. I think St. Louis would probably go with a centerman or a winger at this pick, and so I think Roger McQueen's the one I'm going to go with at this spot.
At a certain point, it's tough to pass on the package, right?
Yeah.
He could be. In a world where he hits his absolute ceiling, he could be the best player from this draft class when it's all said and done. Now, that's the risk, is that you haven't seen him this year, and back injury is not ideal, especially for a big guy. That's tough. So hopefully he comes back and we can see what he's made of, because it's conceivable that he may not be available at this spot when the NHL draft takes place if he comes back and more important than anything, looks healthy. I think people know what he can do. His skill set is. I don't think that's a secret. I think his health is going to be the biggest question mark, and that's going to be the only thing that determines where he actually ends up going in this draft.
So one thing that fits too, St. Louis has been drafting bigger guys the last couple of years, so I think that kind of fits what they've wanted to. However, I still do think they might pick a D. Like, again, I know they've picked a D, lately. They seem to really like the big defenseman model. So I wouldn't be shocked if they took another D here. Again, there's a kind of a few big right-hand D, or there's a big right-hander, big left-hander, kind of fits their model that they might be interested in. But if they're picking between the centers, I think they'll probably take the bigger body. I think I agree with you on that.
Linc, anything to chime in? Or are you good?
I mean, hey, I'm a big Roger McQueen guy. Love it. I've been kind of letting you guys do that. But for St. Louis, I think they're really getting just a really solid long-term play here. Because again, like you said, beginning of this year, mid-October, we were it was a toss-up between like 4 players: Schaefer, Misa, Hagens, McQueen, where everyone thought all 4 of them could have gone first overall. I guess Hagens was the consensus one, but McQueen, he totally has the tools to do it. If you were to come back today, start putting up numbers in the WHL, I'd be hard pressed to find someone who wouldn't have him in their top 5. So he is incredibly impressive. Everyone knows what he's capable of. Again, it's just the factor about injuries. All right, we've seen what's been going on with Caden Lidstrom this year. He may not return for the rest of the year. His last game played was in April of last year. So that's a bit of a cautionary tale to this pick here, but I think Roger McQueen is so much more tool-wise and so much more production-wise that it would be hard to pass up. So I love Roger McQueen.
All right. So at number 9, we got the Habs selecting. So, Mr. Boyce, you're up. Number 9, the Habs. Who are they selecting?
Well, the Habs are going to run up to the table.
Mad.
They're going to run up to the table right now and take Jake O'Brien, because they need a big centerman who is 6'2" and can play make. And this is a perfect fit for them. That this is a high upside. I think pretty high floor, actually. I think this guy is probably guaranteed to be at least a middle 6'4" with some, 1C upside here. This is an elite playmaker, elite power play player. And he is absolutely on fire right now. That whole team is on fire. They have the best power play in the league, in the OHL, and he is the main driver on that power play. I know Nick Lardis has a bunch of goals, but if you watch his goals, they're pretty much all set up by Jake O'Brien. So now I had some questions a little bit early in the year, on his 5-on-5 play in that. Again, I've seen improvement there. I mean, he skates pretty well. He's a very smart player. And again, the Habs are not looking defensemen here. I think their D-core is pretty set, at least. They might look for some D maybe in their later picks here. But if they're not going to trade up, I think this is the perfect pick for them here. They need forward depth and they need high-level skill to fit with some of their other guys. So I think this is a good pick for them.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Jake O'Brien a lot. Got to see him last Saturday, and like you said, he checks off all the boxes. And we got to remember, he chimes in at like 170 pounds. Yeah. If he's 170 pounds, and he's 6'2", right?
Another guy play at 210, right?
Yeah, once he puts on that muscle, like, because he gets pushed off the puck a little bit sometimes, but the work's there, the defensive play is there, the offensive ceiling is there. But when he gets up to 200, like you said, good luck. No one's going to push him off the puck. He's going to run that power play, along the wall there. He's got nice hands, like really nice hands. And I'm a big fan of Jake O'Brien. I like this. This would be a great pick for the Habs at number 9 for sure.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, number 1, they're going into this draft with the same mindset of San Jose, same mindset as Chicago, same mindset as Philly. You got to supplant your franchise guy, and Ivan Demidov is killing it over there in Russia, killing it. And you need someone to supplant him. Jake O'Brien is that answer for the future. He's someone who can get the puck to Demidov. He's someone who can create on his own. He's able to transition really well on the power play. He's an amazing distributor, and what else can you ask for? That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player, and I thought I nearly took O'Brien at 7 for Pittsburgh. I thought he would have been a really good candidate at 6 for Philly as well. And whoever gets this guy is going to really like him. He's probably the best playmaker in the draft, I think. The best puck distributor. The other guys are all very good, but the way he sees the ice in the offensive zone is really impressive, and he makes passes. Okay, one way that I like to tell, if he surprises his own teammates with passes, like, there's a smart player. And yeah. I've seen him hit guys on their tape, and they're not even thinking that puck is coming their way. And he plays on a team that they're pretty good trap team. They play in a bit of a smaller rink. They have weird dimensions in the rink with a really small neutral zone. So they tend to play big and heavy and strong defensively. And that can kind of hamper some offensive output. And I think that's one reason why you see him shine on the power play so much versus 5-on-5 is because he's operating in a properly sized offensive zone. There's just a little more room for them out there to move the puck around. And this is a guy that has, I think, a pile of offensive upside.
One note too, just his analytic numbers, like his Corsi and that. I think what Rocco said too is because they play more of a trapping style, it kind of influences those numbers a little bit. So, I mean, you kind of have to watch the eye test a little bit more with him than in terms of the analytics, just because of the way they play. But I mean, I do agree his playmaking is maybe Misa's. Maybe I can give Misa might be better than him, but I mean, this is
right up.
His in zone playmaking is outstanding. I mean, like, he doesn't have to be on the rush. Like, he is in zone. He can kind of manipulate play either by holding the puck and just finding the open guy. He's very good at that.
All right, I love it. You know what? Let's move on then, and we're gonna go to Anaheim at 10. And this is a Linc pick, right?
This is me, I think.
Oh, Rocco, sorry. Yeah, this is because we did the little trade here. Yeah, I'm all backed up now because of that the movement that we had in there. So Rocco, Anaheim, who you taking?
Anaheim. This is an absolute dream for them. Like, talk about a franchise that is just spoiled with high-end talent, and not just high-end talent, but big high-end talent. That's the operative word in Anaheim. They've made a very conscious and very obvious effort to build a very big team here. Seneca last year, Cutter Gauthier, that trade, Leo Carlson, McTavish, like they're solid down the middle. They've got Zegras and Terry. I think Zegras is on his way out. I don't have much tough luck, Linc, wearing a Zegras shirt. We'll talk about that later. But they're big, building a big team, and their left side of the D is very, very solid for the future with Minchikov, Zellweger, Lacombe, and Solberg coming. They've got Luno and Warren down the right, but my goodness, would Radim Mertka ever look good in Anaheim? It's tough to pass at 10th overall. I don't think he's going to be around at 10th overall personally, but we'll see when the draft comes. Massive, can skate, can move the puck, very slender. So there's a lot of runway here with this player. First year in North America, he's adjusted fantastic. He looks great, and I don't think if he's there at 10, Anaheim's passing him up.
No, this fits kind of this fits their draft model. I mean, the big body. They've been looking for a right shot D2. So I think this is, they kind of have the choice between a couple of guys here. I think this is the right guy. They would, this is the guy that fits what they want.
Yeah, I mean, I love the pick. If they're staying at 10, and like for some reason they finish the year even Stevens, as I don't think they will, but I think they're a candidate to trade up for a better offensive caliber player. That's one thing that's going in my mind here. But Radim Mertka, I wouldn't even say is a consolation prize at 10. That is just a really great player you're getting there, and we've seen him play two styles of game, one in Czechia and a completely different one in the WHL, where they're just letting him be confident with the puck. And we're seeing some really interesting and fun results. And when someone just gets like the good rounding that Anaheim does to these defensemen, because look at who they've churned out for the last few years. They've had Hampus Lindholm, Cam Fowler, Shea Theodore, even though doesn't count a little bit. This is an organization that rounds out defensemen really well. And I think that Radim Mertka going to Anaheim would be a slam dunk. It would work really well.
Yeah, I agree. You guys covered it all. I don't see him running a power play like he is right now in Seattle, but I mean, hey, they gave him the chance, and he's putting up points. So you got to give the kid credit. That's
not why you're picking him, though. Like I agree. If any offense comes, that's just a bonus.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I think, but his points are not projection of, what he can put out offensively. But yeah, I like that pick at number 10. If he slides to number 10, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. All right. So now we got number 11, Utah. And that is the Linkmeister. What you got for Utah?
So this is where I think the draft gets really interesting, because I think there's a lot of people who have a pretty concise top 10 and like normal players that are all inside the top 10, and then it kind of just breaks apart. And I'm looking to break apart the draft a little bit. I have a couple players higher than a lot of other people, but I don't think they're really fitting in with Utah's MO right now. I think you build championships from the back out, and their defensive core is really solid, really big, talented. Maverick Lamoureux, Dmitry Simashev, some other just unknown guys. Will Skahan is a tower. Thomas Lavoie, huge. They need some more puck-moving defensemen, and that's I'm going to go with a guy who's a really solid puck mover, really excellent in transition, another WHL defenseman, Jackson Smith. I really think that they addressed a lot with the Tijigan pick last year, and I still think they will be in the neighborhood for some firepower. But I think it's hard to pass up when you get something that you don't have in your prospect core right now. And I think Utah could totally use a defenseman like Jackson Smith. There are some issues in the defensive game right now, a little immature, a little raw, but those things can be rounded out. And he has a huge ceiling for a defenseman. And I mean, I really would love to see him go to a solid organization now like Utah. We'll see what their name will be. I guess they're going to announce their name when they announce this pick. So this is a very interesting pick here. Yeah. But yes, the Utah, I guess, I'm going to take a guess here, probably the Outlaws or something like that. That's what everyone's saying on Twitter.
I like the Outlaws.
I actually like this pick, and I think you covered it well. I'm going to defer to Boyce here because I'm sure he has an interesting response.
No, I don't think the pick. No, I don't pick the picks. I have him in the same area. I question his decision making. Like, that is kind of the problem I have with him. He has the toolkit to be a high end player, and especially compared to the other defenders that we have around him, does have more offensive upside. So he's a really good rush defender. I mean, there's again the canvas of a really good prospect here, and he fits a need for them. So I mean, I have no problem with that. Considering I'm picking next at the Islanders, this is a guy I was considering there. So, I mean, I think if you can harness him, you can get a really good player here. He just needs to be coached. I think that's more the answer. Is you just have to coach him up, and that decision making comes. You're going to have a really good player here.
Yeah.
No, I think Boise covered it perfect. Yeah, there's still some questions about his decision making for sure, but I mean, in terms of like his ability to carry the puck up the ice, the offensive upside and stuff like that, that kind of the immaturity to his game is teachable, right? And if you can round out his game a little bit better, I think that'd be a pretty nice pick. And he's big kid too, that can big mobile D like that. Yeah, that's a nice pickup for Utah for sure. Okay, so we got the Isles at number 12.
Sorry for sighing, but sorry to Islanders fans out there, but is there any team in the murky middle more than them? Like, seriously. Because their needs right now are high impact talent. And I'm not sure with this pick, the guys around him, there's really that much high impact talent. And I mean, so I'm going to go this route here. It honestly looks like they want to trade Noah Dobson. So, I mean, yes, I know, Rocco. I'm shaking my head at that too. I don't know.
Why?
But I mean, I don't know.
Did they not learn with Devon Taves?
I don't know. However, so I think they're going to address the right-hand D here going forward. I'm going to take Logan Hensler. They seem to err on taking American players more than CHL guys. I mean, I think that's the route they go here. I like the player. I mean, I think there's really good, great skater. There's good, simple skills here. He can move the puck. I do not know what the offensive upside in this guy is. I don't think there's a lot there. I don't think he sees the offensive zone that well. But I mean, I think there's a really good NHL player here. I think the skating translates. He's a fairly big body. You probably look to put him with more of an offensive guy. But I mean, I think this guy is, again, some guy who will play very well for you. I think this is a guy that kind of fits their model. I don't think they want to go forward here. I mean, their forwards, I guess, the guys they picked lately are just kind of, thinking some of the other forwards here, maybe try hard kind of grinder types. They tend to already draft those guys kind of in the second rounds in that. So I don't know. I think the defense here is what they're going to target. So I'll go with Hensler here. Maybe not the most exciting pick, but I think you're getting a quality NHL player here.
Yeah, I think too at this point in the draft, that's almost at the end of a tier here with Hensler, and now we get into guys that have a little more mixed reviews depending how you ask, but Hensler is pretty consistently right in this range, in that kind of 9 to 12, 9 to 13 range. There's not a lot of downside to this guy at all. And outside the top 10, if you can get a right-handed that you're 95% sure is going to be able to play in your top 4 for a long time, you take that and you run.
Yeah, I've watched Logan Hensler for the last 3 years, basically, with the last 2 with the NDDP. And like, the skating is unreal. He's a big mobile guy. You see glimpses of that offense, but it's very inconsistent, and and he doesn't take chances, I guess you could say. He's pretty conservative in the way he approaches the game. But I'm a big fan of Logan Hensler. Like I said, you can there's another project where you can, work on refining some of the parts of his game that could basically make him a really good two-way D for sure. And he's a right-handed D, big, mobile. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
No, the pick, it's a good pick for them. It's just kind of an unexciting pick. I think.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not jumping off the board at you, right? But I think
Yeah.
this is kind of what the Islanders do, and not a lot of their picks are that exciting. Except
You're right.
Cole Eiserman was pretty exciting for them last year. They went with the high upside guy, but usually it's kind of an unexciting pick, is kind of what their model's been.
For sure.
I think it kind of fits what they're looking for. So
yeah, I think it'll work well with them for sure. I agree. Okay, so we got Boston at 13. That's my pick, and Boston, they pretty much need everything as well. I mean, they're kind of. You can pick anyone. So I think they'll go with best available here. And in my opinion, I think that one player that probably could slot in, and he's kind of a Boston type player, and that's Carter Bear. I mean, he's got a little offensive upside. He might end up with 50 goals this year. He's one that just buzzes around the ice as well. I don't see Boston at who's in this range right now. And I know that some of you have some players in this range that you probably might like a little bit better, but my opinion, I think that Carter Bear would fit in nicely at this pick. I mean, I don't know, what does Boston do? They try to move up at some point with some of the other teams on draft day, but if they slot in at 13, I think they might go with someone like Carter Bear. I know there's a couple of guys that Puck Bunker boys probably like at this pick, but that's what I'm going with.
I'm a big Carter Bear fan. I think there's actually a lot of upside with this player, and if Boston's lacking high impact scoring forwards in their organization, and Carter Bear is a nice blend of a pretty high floor as a third line player because of his work ethic and his motor, is willing to battle, to play dirty. He can do that. So there is an NHL player here at worst, and that's something that Boston needs. They need some safety in this pick, but it also allows them the opportunity to kind of take a little bit of a half home run swing, because there is a lot of offensive upside, I think, with Bear as well. He's a very smart player, and he gets a lot of hard work points, but he has a skill that would be requisite to translate that to the NHL level, I think. So I've got no issues with this pick whatsoever.
One thing I would say about this pick, in terms of Don Sweeney and the choices that he makes, I think Carter Bear is about 6 inches too small for what Don Sweeney's looking for. I'm kidding, no, but his heart's really big. I mean, you see it every single time you watch Everett. I mean, look at if you just go and look at all of his points, you're going to be, this guy works for every single point that he gets. This guy is an absolute gamer, and I love it. I respect it. I'm a little bit more timid to rank his offensive upside like higher than a lot of people are ranking his offensive upside as really high. I don't see it too much. I don't see it in his hands. I don't see it in his skating, but you're getting a very safe pick. I think, like you said, worst top 9 guy who is your highest energy forward on your entire staff. I mean, what more could you want? I really do like Carter Bear. I just think he's a little bit more limited offensively than probably most.
I don't disagree with you kind of on the offensive upside part. I mean, I think Rocco and I've talked about before, like maybe he could play on a top line as kind of the secondary guy, the try hard guy that, goes and gets the puck, stuff like that. I don't really see if he could be a first line type play driver, though. I don't think I see that. I mean, again, I think this is a pretty easy third liner. I think this is, the floor is pretty high. And he has some offensive ability. Like there's a guy here that'll put up some points, will contribute kind of all areas of the ice. I think that's a good solid player. I just don't know if you're getting, like a superstar there or anything like that, but that's where we are in the draft. I think this is a good Bruins player, though. I think the Bruins would like this type of guy.
Yeah, I think just based on the draft, the quality of players left over right now. I mean, I don't think you're gonna be hitting any first liners right now this deep into the draft. I think anything below this pick is basically a middle 6 type player anyway. So they've always gone with the big players, like Linc said, Letourneau last year and Beecher a few years. Like, I mean, you need a little bit of
the Dean pot.
Yeah, you need a little bit more motor in your lineup, though, and I think that's what Carter Bear brings to this pick. All right, what do we got next? We got Pittsburgh.
That's me.
And Rocco, you get the Pens again.
Well, like I said before, I mean, Pittsburgh needs just about everything, so they've got the luxury to go best player available here. Now, with
you're gonna take my guy.
With Frondell as my first pick, I don't know. With Frondell as my first pick for them, I think it would be nice for them to come out of the top these two picks here with a forward and a defenseman, ideally. Look, they're still trying to compete, in their opinion, for with Sid and Gino here. Realistically, I think their window is probably closed, but it may be another season or two before they go kind of full scorched earth. And I think they can find their extremely high talent players then. I think right now, in the middle of the first round, not the strongest draft, you're making sure that you get a guy that in 3 to 5 years, when you have a couple young superstars coming up, can come in and already kind of be established and maybe hopefully be a stabilizer for a younger team, a guy that's going to play in the league for a long time, and probably the hardest position to fill in the sport at right-handed defense, and that's Blake Fiddler.
Linc
I was going to take him.
Yeah. Linc is see, this is what happens. You never know what's going to happen in the real draft there, Linc. But
no, I agree with everything you just said. I love Blake Fiddler. I'm a huge fan of him. I really think that he has a lot more upside than people give him credit for. And we always talk about the tools, but for him, it's always just the tools. And look at all this other stuff that he's doing. Look at how confident he's becoming. His skating has become so much better than I ever would have thought. And there's a lot to love. There's a lot to love. There's a lot to see into the future with. And we talk about this so much, but what's a player going to look like in 5 years? You mentioned it yourself, but this guy could be as stable as they come, or as stable as they come with a pretty offensive heavy side game to himself. I love this pick. Not for Pittsburgh, because I'm not the biggest Pittsburgh fan, but I love this pick.
I'm with Linc on this. I really like this pick too. I mean, I've been pretty high on Fiddler all year as well. I've liked his skating, and particularly his side to side is quite good for a guy his size. He can really close that way. I think this is a very good insulator type if you can find some superstar defenseman to play with them. I think this is the fit you're looking for. I mean, big, physical, can move, right-hand shot, has intangibles. This could be, maybe their future captain after, like, if that, Sydney leaves, this could be, type of captain type material that you have. I like this pick here just from that outlook. But I mean, I don't think he's going to be helping them in the next couple years. That's all. And so it's not really addressing that.
That's
but
okay.
Yeah. No, it is okay. Yeah. I mean, I like the player. I've been maybe higher on him than even you have on most of the year. So yeah, I hope Kyle Dubas does make that pick. I'd be quite happy with that.
All right, I think that covers it all. Let's see, Linc. Now that he took your pick, what are you going to do here for Columbus at 15?
I was about to tee up a really big defenseman, but you took my boy. And I'm really stuck between two people, if I'm being really honest. But based on last year,
tell us who they are, and then tell us your pick.
Well, okay. So I defenseman Keishon Aitchison. I'm not going to go with him though. I'm gonna go with the other pick that I have. I love Aitchison. He better go in this top 20. All right, I swear to God, guys. Like, he's an excellent player. Love him. But I'm actually going to go with a player that I think is going to fit their system really well. Something that they've found a lot of in Kirill Marchenko, and I feel like they can find a little bit of it in this player as well. I think, again, winning in this league and developing in this league, and it's defined by goal scoring. And I think there are a few people who do it better than Justin Carbonneau from Blainville-Boisbriand in the queue. I am a huge fan of Carbonneau. I have been from day one. I was there before people found him and was like, oh my God, this guy's awesome. He's really cool. And I'm still here. I'm still around after people are like, oh, he's too one-dimensional. He is not one-dimensional. I think he is a better skater, a better distributor, and a better stick handler than anyone really gives him credit for. And he's a bigger body. This guy is a bigger guy, and he will impose his will on people. He's a little bit mean. He's a little bit rough. And as we saw last night, Canada needs more of that. So Justin Carbonneau, he's an excellent player. He's a gritty player, but he's got that tremendous shot talent. He's a really good shooter, and I think he fits in perfectly to kind of cap off a rebuild for Columbus, because they're, as you see right now, they're picking 15th. They're doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, great. I think that's a very good pick for them. And in terms of, we've been talking a lot about it. There's not a ton of guys with very high offensive upside, while this guy has very high offensive upside. His game's come a long way since the beginning of the season. I've gone back and forth on him several times because I've seen his good games and I've seen his bad games. His bad games are tough, but I think ultimately, as long as you're confident in the kid's work ethic, which I have seen from him, you focus on the good games. And I've said it a million times, it's drafting and development. And with the right development, this guy would look like a steal here, probably.
Yeah. So I like the skill set that he has. Like, he can shoot the puck. He's very quick. He has good hands. The issue I've always had with him is, I talk to Rock all the time. He'll make a guy miss. He'll dangle a guy and then try and dangle the next guy and lose the puck. Like, that's kind of if you can work that out of him, I think you can get a premier talent here. And I'm starting to see more now, like the effort levels there. There is improvement here. I think he just almost tries too hard at times. I mean, he just wants to do everything at once. But there's elite skills here. So I think there's, especially the guys available, I think this is the highest, at least in this area, I think this is the highest offensive talent available. And he's improved as the year's gone on. So I'm, again, I think that's, in this area, that's it's a good kind of home run pick. I think you can get a high quality player here. You can get a top 6 player, out of him.
Awesome. All right, let's move on. So now we got Montreal again. And this pick has been, we moved this one, right? Did we make a trade here?
This is
Montreal again.
You got Montreal again, Darren?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rocco might not like this pick at all, but they're going to run up to the board again and take Bill Zonin, and he's going to be a fan favorite for that team.
Nice.
Yes. I love it.
Am I allowed to swear on this show?
So Montreal is winning this draft with drafting 2 big forwards who will fit right into the lineup, which is what they need. This is the greasy winger that they need. This is the guy who can go win pucks, forecheck hard, play in every situation, contribute, play with their good forwards. He's going to get a ton of tap-in goals from Jake O'Brien. So I think we're going to, we're really going to like that. And again, we're talking about value to the fans. They are going to love him. The effort level. I think this is the highest motor in the entire draft. There's some shifts I've seen that are outrageous what he's doing. I mean, I think the one time I posted, he had about a minute, he just kept the puck in basically himself on the forecheck. So I think this is a great pick for them. As a Sens fan, I would be furious right now because that's the guy I would want. But I think this is the Habs that they are very happy with the draft effect because they need forward depth. They need guys that can play in the NHL. And I think both him and O'Brien fit exactly what they need. So Montreal's celebrating today.
Oh, I hate that pick so much. He's my favorite. He's my favorite player in the whole draft.
He fits them perfectly.
I know he does. I know he does. But he's my favorite player. And as a Sens fan, it would just hurt my heart to have to play against him for a very long time here. This is the most underrated guy on pretty much every draft list that I've seen so far. This guy's awesome.
Yeah. Off the charts. This guy is just, again, like you said, I wouldn't say highest motor in the draft, but he's darn close to it. This guy, he's so confident too. He tries everything. And again, he's an unorthodox player. He's a creative player. He just makes things work. And he's been taking some faceoffs, which has been, in my opinion, bumping his value up. And I've never watched a Bill Zonin game without smiling a couple times because he'll just do something that's silly and it works, and you're like, this guy, he's just a fun player. And if he goes to Montreal, they will have a shrine to him, like, because the fans there are odd, they're crazy, but they love their players, and they will have a shrine to this guy. They love their Q players. Billy Z would be a high effort player for Montreal. I love how good of a fit this is. This is awesome.
Yeah, I know you guys are big fans of Billy Z, and Linc has been talking about Billy Z. I'm not there yet. I still had some reservations about his game, but I mean, I could see it happening. He's in the queue, good old French kid, and he's a big physical presence for sure. So that would fit well in Montreal for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on at this high yet.
Well, the thing is with him, what I like that fits with Montreal is they can move him up the lineup. I think this is a guy that, again, I don't see how he doesn't play on a third line at worst. And he would be very effective, especially with Montreal. They have some smaller forwards. I think this is a guy that would fit with them. Just put some size on those lines, can go to the net, score at the net. Even on their power play, gives them a net front presence. This is, I really like the fit because they don't have this model of player, which they kind of need. Even again, they try to trade for some size. I mean, they traded for Line, but again, Line's not this type of guy.
No.
They need a guy with size that can go to those areas, that can go win pucks, that can go score goals in front of the net. This is what they need. So that's the thought process on that pick. And again, I am high on him. I think a lot of his skills are translatable. I mean, he might not be the most highly skilled guy, but there's a lot.
He's an NHL player for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What do we got next here? So that was Montreal, Ottawa, and I deferred this pick to Rocco, his neck of the woods. So Rocco, what you got the Sens doing at this pick?
Well, at first I'm going to have to go back to Sport Check and return my Ottawa Senators Bills on jersey. That'll be the first thing I have to do is take that back and get a refund. Hopefully they'll refund me for the customization. But all right, when it comes to Ottawa's pick, they have one of the best under 25 cores in hockey, but they actually don't have. Thank you, Pierre. By the way, they actually don't have a lot in their prospect system due to a lot of chronic mismanagement of their assets here. So Ottawa needs a guy, and one of the actual consequences of that brain deadery that we watched for the last 7 years in Ottawa was that they actually lose their first round pick either this year or next year as part of the Evgeny Dadonov fiasco. That went down. And there's probably maybe two guys here that would make me still keep this pick. I think it might be a realistic, if Ottawa picks in the 20s, it's a realistic option. They could give this pick up. Next year's a much deeper class. That said, if they are going to keep this pick, they need to make sure that it counts because they won't have one next year if they make this pick. And that means you got to get a guy that you know is going to play, even if it means leaving a little bit of offensive upside on the board. That said, Ottawa has their star players already, and what they really could use is people coming in within the next couple of years who can help take this team over the top and play in your middle six and be hard as nuts to play against. And Malcolm Spence would be a great fit in Ottawa.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Agreed.
That
Agreed.
is my boy.
Yeah.
That's my boy.
I like this pick.
I was about to say, I can't believe he fell this far. I'm going to be real. I'm looking at my notes and I'm like 17. Like I did some jumping jacks for Carbonell, but like Malcolm Spence, he is a player. This guy is a gamer, and we've had some issues. We've had some questions about the consistency, but when this guy is on, he can take over games just as good as Anton Frondell over there in Sweden. You look at this guy's international tape and you'd think that he is a top 4 talent in this draft. There's so much passion. There's so much energy in his game. It's frightening. It's really, really exciting to watch. It kind of makes me think of Yakimchuk from last year and the energy that he brought every single game. But Spence, again, he's on and then he's off. He's on and he's off. And when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's kind of off and he's disappearing a little bit. But again, we've all seen it. Guy can take over games. Guy's got the stick handling. He's got the mass, the muscle mass. He's a big boy. He can move you out of the way. So Malcolm Spence, great pick for Ottawa, I think.
As a Sens fan myself, I really like that pick. I think he fits their team well. I mean, they need some depth on their team. And again, as I said with Zahn, and this is another move up and down the lineup, I think he can play with good players. I think he could maybe play on a first line, again, as the secondary guy, but he can play on that line and play very effectively. As Linc said, we've seen that when he plays internationally, he plays with really good guys, and he plays really well with them. I think that fits. I think he can play on a third line for them and be effective. He can play on their PK and be effective. He can play on a power play even for them. So the Sens are lacking a lot of depth, especially if you think of it this way, cheap depth, especially for, the first 3 years of an entry-level contract. I think, getting a guy that's already kind of filled out, he's closer to the NHL, I think, maybe than other guys because he's a little bit older. I think this pick works well. I really, I'd be very happy with this pick as an Ottawa guy.
Oh yeah, you know what? You guys have covered it all. I think I love Malcolm Spence too, and get to watch him. Actually, I think they're coming to town soon, so I'll be able to see him. And what's the timeline on Schaefer? Is he going to be back for the playoffs at least, or
Hopefully, I think.
hopefully, eh? Yeah, so I'm hoping to see him.
I
Well,
heard mid-March.
I'll make a run out to see wherever he goes. Well, mid-March, 23rd is the end of the OHL season, so you'll be back then to see that. So it'll be nice to see those two reunited. But yeah, that's a great pick for Ottawa for sure. Nicely done. Actually, that was going to be my next pick, so you kind of stole him because I think he'd fit in nice. He'd fit in nice anywhere at this point, especially for the Red Wings who need that kind of toughness. But so let's move on here. Let's see. So Detroit's the next pick. So I got that pick from Rocco. I mean, Detroit, their D is pretty solid. Obviously you got a young core of D with Seider, Edvinsson, Sandin Pellikka. They could go two ways here. And you could lock up your top four with Aitchison, or, you add a little bit of forward depth. There's a player I like at this pick, Lyndon Lakovic. Geez, I don't know. Toss a coin. I don't know. This is a tough one. Let's go Kashan Aitchison. Let's say that they lock up their top four and they're loaded in D now. Come on. Because now that he adds a little toughness, he's got that toughness. He's got that grit. He doesn't mind dropping the mitts. So I think that, imagine Detroit's top four with Seider, Edvinsson, Sandin Pellikka, and Aitchison. I mean, come on. That's pretty impressive for top 4D right there, especially as a young 4D. So yeah, I'm going to go with Kashan Aitchison. He's another player I like to watch in Barrie, and he's a lot of fun to watch.
Tough to disagree with that pick, especially at this point in the draft. The only thing you don't like about him is you'd like him to be a little bit bigger to really play the way that he likes to play. You don't usually see a 6 foot D that rough and tumble. I'm not worried about him though. He's tough as nails. He's looked great for Canada. I think he could play on any of your three pairings in due time, and probably on at least your second unit on both special teams. He's a heart and soul player. He's going to get an honest effort from him every night. He's going to be in there, mucking stuff up. I talk about this a lot. I want guys who are no fun to play against, and he's no fun to play against. I really like that pick.
I think the other thing is
excellent pick.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I think the other thing is too. I mean, he's putting up points in the O. I just don't know if he's going to be, a real offensive guy. But Detroit kind of has their offensive defenseman, so it kind of fits that way. I think that's it kind of gives them a different dynamic that they don't have. They don't have this, this guy that's literally going to scare everybody out there. That he's just going to try and run them over. So I think that might give those guys, again, he is a little smaller, but he might be able to give those guys a little bit more room that way. And it might be, it could be a good compliment to them. I think that could work.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted this guy at number 19. I mean, I told you guys that we have to pick him in the top 20. He is a top 20 talent in this draft, especially. And a lot of things that people are saying about him, they said about Stian Solberg last year. Even Carter Yakimchuk last year. He is not a fun guy to play against, but he is a fun guy to play with. Internationally, people will talk about this guy as like their favorite teammate. He's just jokes. He's a funny dude, and he's a great teammate, but he's not a fun guy to play against. Big physical guy. He could be your Cronwell replacement there in Detroit. But yeah, love him. I would have taken him. Like even higher at this. I love him. So he's a great player.
All right. So we got Vancouver at number 19. So that's Linc, right? Do us proud there for us Canucks here, eh?
Yeah. Well, we're in a bit of a predicament. We're 19. So we're kind of at a stage, a scenario where personal preference can play a role. And I think seeing how these Canucks, they go for the Swedes. They love the Swedes over there in Sweden. I was debating putting him in the top 20 because I didn't know who was going to be available at this point, but at this point, if we're talking about him and Lynn and Lakovic and what Vancouver needs, they need guys who are going to be NHL players. They need guys because again, they've got their core. I mean, and they've supplanted it. They've made it really nice. But looking at their forward core, they need, in my opinion, better centers with upsides, centers with two-way potential. You get all of that in Milton Gastrin over there in Modo, Sweden. I have had the tremendous pleasure of seeing this man in person recently, and he is a joy to watch. Oh my goodness, he is gritty, yet the two-way flair. He plays about 2 inches and about 20 pounds heavier than he really is. There's a lot to love in what he gives to your organization every single night, and I think he's going to be over in the NHL a lot sooner than people think. He's a personal preference pick of mine. All right, not a lot of people have him as high as I do for many reasons. The offensive upside's in question, but he is a playmaker. He's a good distributor. I could totally see him on a power play 2 line. For what Vancouver needs right now, it's not out of the question, in my opinion. And taking him at 19, I think he's going to be someone that rises in a lot of people's eyes more so. He's going to be a surprise of the draft. Just watch.
Yeah, and I think there's potential for that there. I've been a big fan of this player since the Helenka, honestly. I think he's very smart. He's able to play with the most highly skilled players on your team. And I've got all the time in the world for your line of reasoning. But if we were going to go a safe player with some two-way and maybe a little bit of offensive upside, I personally probably would have gone with Brady Martin. But I don't disagree that Vancouver needs some harder guys to play against because they've found a way to build one of the most talented, softest teams I've ever seen play hockey. So a guy like Gastrin who actually has a little give a care in his game that I don't always see from Canucks players, I think could be a nice fit.
So comparing those two, we've had this discussion before. Like, I do agree with Linc that Gastrin he's a better playmaker. Like, he is a better distributor of the puck than Brady Martin is. I think Brady Martin shoots the puck better than him, but I think some teams might take Brady Martin. I think some teams could. I do agree that some teams could take him instead. They might have a better preference here because there is a little bit of a different skill set, but you're getting a two-way forward that's hard to play against. And I've really liked him too. We've put him in our first round. We do like him. We didn't have him 19, but I could see if you're looking for a safe player, a guy who will play, has some upside. I think this is again, they like their Swedes. That if that's part of their draft, model, that's where they're comfortable drafting. It's a pipeline. That might be something that, is definitely possible.
Linc was right, though. I think we're exactly at the point of the draft where personal preference plays a big role because I think, looking at the names that are left, you got maybe one or two more guys who are pretty much consensus first rounders. But other than that, it's wide open from this point on. So maybe a name that isn't commonly inside the top 20, but not a crazy pick.
No.
Yeah. No.
Some other contenders that you guys didn't mention, I would
go ahead.
I was going to say just a couple of contenders that you guys mentioned. Again, like some people will see what Benjamin Kendall is doing in Calgary and be like, I love that. I want that on the Canucks. Or ditto for probably like Cullen Potter, maybe. I've seen him as high as like the top 15 for some people. I don't agree with that, but he's doing a lot of good things in Arizona. There's Jakub Iwasniak, who's now just coming back with the fury of 1,000 Suns over there in Luleå. He's a great player. So it's a wide open position to take, and it's hard to justify. There are 32 players in this draft who are surefire caliber first rounders. So I think we open up to the possibility for some chance around this area of the draft.
Or you're getting outside the lottery too, so you kind of want to, some teams will maybe look upside, others are going to look safety, and we need to get a guy here. So I think that's definitely a distinct possibility.
For sure. All right. Last pick. All right. We have Calgary from New Jersey. So
I think that's me.
Darren.
All right.
The last pick, the number 20, baby. Who do you got?
So I'm going to qualify this again. We have Calgary here. I think they've got what they think on defense. At least I think they like kind of what they have on defense. They took Perek last year. I think I don't think they're going to go D here, even though there is the brother of a prospect that they do have that is maybe a possibility for them to take, but I don't think they would. I think for them, they like their forwards. They like big forwards, but they don't really have any game-breaking type high offensive talent forwards. They have guys they like. I think they want to maybe take a swing on a guy here. So I would take Wozniak here. I think that fits kind of their draft model. It's the toolsy guy, lots of offensive upside. They also tend, again, I mean, they're kind of willing to take some shots on guys in the 20s, I think. It's just, I think it kind of fits what they need. They need to kind of hit on a high upside guy. I like the playmaking. He has come around on me. There are a lot of concerns kind of the Linc in that. Now we've stated this before. Heard from scouts, they're kind of worried about does he want it all the time? Well, I'd argue that Lakovic has a bit more of that issue than he does. I've really liked what I've seen lately. This guy's a physical big player. He can distribute the puck. He can shoot the puck. There's high-end ability here to be a very unique player. I've said this before. He could end up being one of the top 5, drafted players in this class if he really wants it. I think this is a need that they have. Now, can he play center? I'm not sure. That might be something, I think you kind of bank on him being a winger, maybe try him at center. But again, there is a high upside offensive talent here that has physical. He is physical. He is a physical player.
He has played on the wing internationally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think he doesn't necessarily have to slot in at center.
No,
but you know what? He's another player kind of like Frondell that since the U19 challenge has kind of started to show his potential. You know what I mean? And so yeah, you know what?
It's more consistent. I mean, I think that was kind of what people's issue was, is that it was hit or miss. Like, you'd have one game like, this is the best player on the ice. Then you watch him the next time, you don't even see him.
Yeah.
So that was the issue people were having. But now when we're viewing him, it's become more consistent. Like, oh, this guy's very noticeable. He's doing good things all the time. He's hitting guys, which is kind of the issue I have with a Lyndon Lakovic, is he isn't physical. And it does. I have that concern with a 6'4" guy that I need him to be physical. I need him to be engaged with the game. And I just don't quite see it right now, which is why I wouldn't take him here, even though the consensus is that he's a higher pick. That's my trouble with him.
Yeah. I think Lakovic here is the obvious pick.
Yeah.
But I think Wozniak is the right pick. I think that I've seen more improvement from him throughout the year. Lakovic probably a better playmaker, but I think Wozniak's shot needs to be accounted for, because he can absolutely rip the puck, and him standing in the circle on the power play is a pretty scary thing. I like this pick here.
No, East Wozniak, he's a really great player, and you look at the talent, you look at what he did last year, why he was rated so highly going into this year. What he did in the J20 was incredible. And you're absolutely right for having effort concerns. I do have them myself with him, probably more so than other people, and he is going to go higher than he's going to get drafted higher than I rank him in this draft cycle. I know it's going to happen, but there's a player there. There's an offensive upside there that you can't deny, and he can take over. He can take over games at that point. You've seen it internationally, and you don't want to be the team that misses on that swing. And I respect a team for doing that in the top 20, but I also think you kind of get some of that with Lyndon Lakovic. I think there's a bit more stability in that pick with him. I disagree. I think when he's off, because again, they both have, I would say, effort issues. When Wozniak is off, I think he's a net negative sometimes for Luleå. It's quite bad. With Lyndon Lakovic, I think he just more disappears. And I'd rather that when a player, because I think their upsides are similar. I think, again, Lakovic's the taller player, but again, it's up to, like we just talked about with Gastrine, it's up to personal preference, and I think they're very comparable players. And I mean, looking at the optics of that, just Calgary getting another big dude with Battaglia, that's scary to me.
well, just it fits kind of their draft model. Like they're going to take a big guy there. If both those guys are there, they're going to take one of them. I think that just
Yeah, I think you
I
can't
don't
go wrong either one.
yeah. I know like Kindle plays there, but I don't think they would be taking a smaller ish forward there. I think they're going to go big body. So
I think they were hoping for Yakimchuk to fall to them last year. I really do. But you
Pretty
guys were the
possible.
smart ones. The Sens picked them up. Like, good for you guys.
All right, boys, that was fun. You know what? So I'm planning on doing this. We had. I was in touch with a bunch of, guys online that just couldn't make the time work right now. So I think that come closer maybe to the lottery or whatever. I think we'll do like a bigger one. I'm hoping to get like maybe 8 guys, and maybe I don't know. Maybe we could do top 32, or we'll try to do it bigger next time. We'll get some big name presence on here, and but yeah, everyone watching, check out the Puck Bunker on YouTube and New Wave Hockey as well. The boys put out some really good content, as you have heard on today's episode. And yeah, boys, Rocco, Darren, thanks for joining us.
Oh, this is great. Thanks for having us. It's a lot of fun, and happy to do this again as we move towards the actual draft.
Yeah, this was great. Look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll do it again. And my boy Linc, our next episode is number 9 now. We're gonna have to figure out what we're doing here. We haven't even talked about that yet, eh?
Yeah, we're thinking about all these new prospects. I'm actually on my table right now is my homework that I'm going to do right after this, and I was on the plane home from Prague. I wrote down like reasons why these certain players should be my next prospects of the week, and it's a list of 9 guys. I'm like, oh my gosh! So I got to get to all these dudes. So we'll see about that. But yeah, it's a fun bunch. So we'll see. It'll be good.
All right, boys, then that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being on the show again, guys. And we'll see you soon. Cheers, eh?
See you guys.
Thank you.